We're now going to summarize Chapter 6, Project Management. There will be 8 questions on the exam for Chapter 6. This chapter is pretty long, but we're just going to hit the highlights. Make sure that you've already read Chapter 6 and completed the midpoint exam. Now let's get started. So all 8 of the questions on the exam will be in reference to the following objectives. Explain the importance of project management, develop an estimate for a bid or proposal, determine project costs, company overhead and profit, develop a project budget and understand its importance, explain the purpose and benefits of project scheduling, implement procedures for proper project documentation, state 2 benefits of good project closeout procedures. On the following slides, we will discuss these 2 types of estimates, the detailed survey method and the unit price estimate. The detailed survey estimate is an accurate method that lists all project items needed and the materials and labor required for each item. A specific price is assigned to each item or task. This type of estimate requires that a quantity survey or takeoff be made. A takeoff is a complete listing of materials and items of work needed in the project. So the following steps are needed for the detailed survey method. Assume a bid on the installation of 200 feet of underground piping costs. Included in the estimate are materials, labor, equipment, rental, permit, supervision, project overhead, and general overhead. The contractor prepares a material quantity survey from the project drawings and specifications. Vendor quotes are obtained for the materials to be used. Rental quotes are obtained for equipment, vendors for any additional equipment needed. The contractor does a detailed labor study and estimates labor costs. Project overhead requirements, including supervisor salaries, are estimated and costs are added in. The contractor determines the percentage of annual company overhead that applies to the project. This amount is added to the estimate. A decision is made about what the profit should be. That figure is added to the estimate. The resulting amount constitutes the bid price. So the unit price estimate. Some construction projects do not work well with the detailed survey bid. They may require a unit price bid, a bid broken down into several segments or units. Estimates are assigned to each unit of construction. A quantity survey is performed, but all units are kept separate. Using the previous bid created for the detailed survey method, if the resulting bid price were $15,000, the unit price would be $75 per linear foot. Example: an excavation project requires the removal and hauling of an undetermined amount of fill material. Since the amount of work is not defined, the contractor quotes a certain amount per cubic yard on the bid form. This amount includes equipment rental and maintenance costs, labor costs, fixed overhead costs, and profit. Labor cost is one of the most difficult aspects of estimating. Direct labor and indirect labor are 2 terms that all estimators should understand, and on the next couple slides we're going to discuss both of those. Direct labor, basic hourly wages paid for actually installing, building, or modifying a task item. Labor market research can help a contractor learn typical wages in the area and determine whether union or federal pay scales are required. Indirect labor, labor costs related to the wages or required payroll deductions. Examples are federal and state withholdings, unemployment, federal insurance contribution act, and workers' compensation insurance. An employee trust benefit in place for the employees can also be an indirect labor cost. Subcontractors. You want to make sure that you get competitive bids. You need to verify workers' comp insurance and bonding, and also liability insurance. You need to maintain a list of subs and provide them to the CCB within 72 hours of request. So on the following slides we're going to discuss overhead, which is an immensely important aspect of project management in a real-world application. You have project overhead and company annual overhead. So project overhead, also referred to as soft costs. These are the costs that are directly related to the job but cannot be classed as labor or materials. They consist of permanent company-owned materials or equipment, required project bonds and insurance, fees for surveying, building layout or testing, site supervision, schedules, reports, and shop drawings, construction cleanup, and final cleanup. Okay, so typically the amount of company overhead is the same as general and administrative expenses, found on the company's income statement, as you should remember from the last chapter. And here are some examples of company overhead: office supplies, office employee salaries, advertising, CCB license fees, general liability insurance. So every estimate must include a profit. Otherwise, what's the point? Often profit will be determined by market rate. You'll need to walk the line between getting the job with a reasonable bid while still making a reasonable profit. It's up to you as to how you choose to rate your profit. Profit markup factors to consider are value of estimated labor, value of supervision, work can only be produced efficiently with qualified supervision. The availability of qualified supervision directly affects company growth, and the profit for each project should reflect this. Return that is needed on capital invested in the company. Review project documents. Before preparing an estimate, the owner or estimator should review the project documents, which include the contract documents, to decide if the company can meet the requirements of the project and wants to perform the work. If proceeding, carefully read and interpret all information, all contractual requirements, and all other specific requirements for the estimate. Project documents include insurance, surety bond forms, general conditions, supplementary conditions, drawings or plans, specifications, allowances, supplements, and addenda. Before preparing the estimate, the contractor must become familiar with job site conditions. Environmental conditions will invariably affect project costs. The following types of information should be determined from the site visit: probable weather conditions, site access and security restrictions, space and staging limitations, conditions of existing buildings and or other nearby structures, availability of electricity, water, telephone, and other utility services, natural vegetation, and type of foliage or shrubs, including such things as poison oak for health and safety measures, surface topography, trees and drainage, subsurface soil, water and rock, history of the site or environmental impact statement, special safety or traffic control requirements. Environmental issues can seriously impact the project cost and schedule. A careful environmental assessment must be part of the contractor's site visit. The following are common environmental conditions that a contractor may see and document while visiting a job site: environmentally sensitive areas such as bodies of water, wetlands, protected trees, and wildlife. These may require permits or restrictions that must be factored into the estimate. Subsurface investigation, searching for signs of old dumping sites, buried fuel or storage tanks, or any other contamination requiring extra cleanup and disposal costs. Even archaeological or significant historical remains can disrupt a project schedule and budget. Itemized summary. The itemized summary is the basis for a complete and accurate estimate of project costs and lists all major items of work in the order they are to be performed. After the quantity survey is complete, each item is classified and totaled onto a summary sheet. The summary sheet lists the total material and labor needed for each task item and is a basis to estimate overall costs. Missing any task items results in estimating mistakes and bids that are too low or high. Such bids lead to unprofitable jobs or loss of prospective jobs. Summarizing project costs and add-ons. To determine project costs, a contractor starts with material or equipment costs from the quantity survey. He then adds direct labor costs and labor burden. Project overhead or soft costs are listed as line item costs and added in. Project allowances and subcontractor bids are added to the itemized summary. Finally, the cost of performance and payment bonds, as well as builder's risk insurance and any other requirements of the project, should be included. Adding overhead to the estimate. Once you know what your annual overhead is, you can then find out what percentage your overhead is of your total revenue. Now you can use that percentage in estimates in order to account for overhead. See the examples in your text. So many companies add profit as a percentage of the job's total cost. Here's an example that is used in the text using an inverse mathematical equation. If you desire 5% profit and overhead costs are 20%, your total overhead and profit equates to 25%. Therefore, using the inverse method, you would divide your direct cost by 0.75, under this circumstance giving you a total of $26,667, which stands for $6,667 in overhead and profit. So some owners require contractors to present bids in a certain format. If so, the format is described in your invitation to bid documents. These instructions need to be followed carefully and completely. When the owner is a public agency, deviations, modifications, or amendments to this form may cause a contractor's bid to be considered non-responsive, meaning it's rejected. These rejected bids will not be considered for award. Bids for public improvement work are required to be submitted in writing before a specified date and time. A bid submitted after the deadline will generally be considered non-responsive. Bidders must disclose their first-tier subcontractors within 2 hours after submitting a bid to a public agency for a public improvement when the contract value is more than $100,000. Contract documents, especially the invitation to bid, usually require substantial contractor information. Failure to submit this information on the correct form by the deadline will result in a non-responsive bid. So your proposal needs to be clear and concise. Include quantity, quality, type, and any other pertinent details which will depend on the type of project. This is where you're going to inform the customer how and when they will pay. It's also good practice to let them know for how long the price is good for. This is where you tell them about you. This is not the time to be humble. You should also let them know about your insurance limits. You can lead the client to a company website where you display your work, or just a simple portfolio. The goal is to win their business. The itemized summary of the estimate already details major items of work. Now it's time to list all activities. This exercise will help the estimator organize and plan the project as well as prepare the schedule. To do this, determine what type of crew will be needed to complete the activity, what materials will be required for the activity, what subcontractors will be needed, what equipment will be needed, who needs to do each task, where will each task be done, when will materials or equipment be needed, how long will the equipment be used, when can each task start, how long will each task take to complete, what are the relationships and dependencies among the tasks. The next step in the CCB recommended process is to sequence the activities. When placing the tasks in proper sequence, group the tasks into fundamental operations and analyze each operation to determine the sequence of work called job logic. Duration of tasks, relative independence of tasks, location of tasks. After the project tasks have been grouped and sequenced with duration times, the next step is to schedule contingency times. Ideally, project progress without delays. In the real world, however, delays are inevitable. Material deliveries, unforeseen job site difficulties, inclement weather, work order changes, or the owner not sure of style or color choice may cause delays. When developing a schedule, the sum of the duration of the critical path tasks determines the total duration of the project. Tasks not on the critical path can be completed later than initially scheduled. The term float is the amount of time a task can go beyond its earliest expected completion without delaying the entire project. Non-critical float tasks can occur concurrently with critical tasks, but if non-critical tasks are not completed within the float, they become critical. For example, roofing may be non-critical to electrical and plumbing rough-ins, which are critical tasks. But if roofing is not complete by the time rough-ins are complete, it then becomes critical for the interior insulation and drywall, since roofing is required for protection of interior work. Managing project documentation. From the beginning, it's important to maintain necessary project documentation. The project manager must have a copy of the contract and be completely familiar with its content. Once permits have been obtained, keep them in a safe place at the job site as required by the issuing agency or jurisdiction. Keep records of any inspections that are conducted. If the project involves a wetlands area or any other environmental issue, such as lead or asbestos, get the proper permits and follow required guidelines and record keeping. Notices. The project manager is responsible for giving all notices, as required in the contract, and for preparing work activities. For instance, utility companies need to know when and what type of work will be done on a residence or facility. They need notice to mark locations of buried lines before excavations or to provide temporary power to the site. The Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ, offers a website and with instructions for searching databases on permits, underground storage tanks, and environmental cleanup. Environmental site conditions may require notices and permits. While controlling the schedule and budget, these tasks need to be kept in mind. Schedule material ordering, delivery, and any special handling requirements for material. Determine how much on-site supervision is needed. Locate all utilities and ensure they are not disturbed. Before doing any digging or excavating, call, in quotes, call before you dig at the 800 number. Determine how to get temporary power to the project. Conduct weekly job meetings with your production manager and perhaps occasionally with all the subcontractors and employees. This will keep management and employees up to date on the project and can help create goodwill with employees. When conducting job site meetings with owners, subcontractors, or building inspection officials, be sure to keep minutes of the meeting. Keep a log of all project-related phone calls. Record who was called or who called the company, topic of call, date, time, and outcome or action to be taken. Conduct employee safety meetings. Remember, in addition to not wanting any employees to get hurt, a company has a responsibility under OSHA to create and maintain a safe working environment for all employees. On the next couple slides, we're going to discuss project closeout. The first step is the contractor submits formal notice to the architect and the owner that the construction project is substantially complete. Based on his observations and on discussions with the contractor, the architect documents substantial completion with the owner and contractor. Substantial completion may activate certain warranties, depending on provisions of the contract. Step 3 is, during phased projects, the architect and the owner may recognize some, but not all, of the building systems as being substantially complete. This should be clearly documented since start dates for warranty and guarantee periods for various building systems may vary. Number 4, the architect and the owner make an on-site walkthrough punch list noting needed corrections. The contractor corrects all work noted on the punch list. The architect and owner may then make a final observation of the corrected work. When the owner accepts the work, the architect issues a certificate of completion to the contractor with a copy to the owner. The certificate documents that the contractor has completed the work specified in the contract documents. Number 5, the contractor documents and delivers to the owner a complete keying schedule with master, submaster, room, and specialty keys. The contractor submits all record drawings, as-built drawings or plans, testing and balancing reports, and other documents required by the contractor. Now let's move on to the next few steps. Project closeout continued. Number 7, the contractor submits all guarantees, warranties, certificates, and bonds required by the contract documents or technical specifications. All required operation and maintenance manuals are forwarded to the owner. The contractor submits the final consolidated payment request, including approved and signed change orders, as final accounting of the project. Number 10, in the final accounting documents, the contractor submits final lien waivers and affidavits as required by the contract. Generally, the contractor needs to show the owner that all invoices, including those from any subcontractor or suppliers, have been paid with the exception of amounts due on the final payment request. The contractor submits these documents with the final payment request. Number 11, the architect sends a final certificate of payment to the owner with a copy to the contractor. 12 is, the contractor provides any required certificate of occupancy indicating that the building authorities who have jurisdiction over the project approve occupancy of the space for the intended use. And the final step in project closeout is the owner makes final payment to the contractor and notifies the architect.